All right, baby. So today is day 25. We're 1/4 of the way there. Let's start off by, on this momentous occasion, first congratulating you on 25 days. 25% there. 100 days is a long time to commit to anything. Secondly, what would you say have been your biggest takeaways in 25 days in now?
What do you mean by biggest takeaways?
What have you learned? What would you, if somebody was 3 weeks in and 4 weeks in about coding, what would you be able to relate to them about? What would be your advice for somebody maybe getting started on day 1 and you're on day 25?
I relate to the dumbness of anyone trying to just learn code. I instantly just feel dumb. But at the same time, what I would say the benefit of it is you start understanding how things that you use daily, like any type of program, software, or anything like that, you kind of start to understand like how everything starts to work together to build what it is that you're using, how the interface, like why the interface works the way that it does and how it works the way that it does. And on top of that, I'd say the biggest thing to getting to a point where you can actually start using and doing things, terms. Understand your terms. I could not stress that enough, and that's something that only because I really struggle with, because you can't apply your terms if you don't actually know what the fuck they mean. So understanding your terms really helps you to apply the terms, because if you I think understanding the logic just will come naturally to you, just because as a human race you can tinker. Tinkering is kind of like the human being thing. So I think that eventually will come to you naturally. Not that it may not come like right away, but it will come after you start to understand what it is that you're working with. And I think that goes for anything. So I really think that starting your web development, starting your career in that, really starts with your terminology, understanding it. And after you understand the basics of your terminology, being able to apply that into your coding. So I still want to do flashcards. I haven't been able to get to it because I just haven't been to the store yet, haven't been able to get there yet. Hopefully this weekend I will. And I want to start memorizing my terminology. But for anyone who may be struggling or feeling dumb, I'd say 100% focus on the terms.
No, you should feel dumb. You should feel challenged. It's hard to, though, not to, because I know that.
Fuck that. I was crying. I felt dumb. Okay.
It's kind of like saying, to me, I look at it as trying to learn a new language, like Spanish. If you don't know Spanish, you're like, oh well, I can speak languages, or I have a brain that processes this. How hard could it be? And you realize like, oh, it's actually a brand new skill set. So it's hard not to at times. So I can relate to that. And terminology is, I like that you said that, because that's something I've been trying to stress, trying to break down each problem. So that's why we do our little bit of review in the beginning of the day.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I recognized that you did, and which helped later on when you were describing how to use it in a if statement or else if statement or anything like that. When you used it, I go, oh, okay. So just knowing the term, then seeing it being applied and explained to you as to why you're applying it, I can't tell you the light bulbs that go off when that happens. So if you can do that, if you can structure the way that you're going to learn your code in that type of structure, I feel that you're going to have a significant amount of increase in being able to continue to apply into maybe algorithms or any kind of problem that you're going to have to solve in your code, because you have the basics down and you have every step to cover it.
Okay, good. So why don't we jump in? You said you did another section on Codecademy.
Yeah, and this section I really would like to go through it just because there was a lot of questions that I've had, and they go through 2 different sections. Hold on, I gotta get chapstick. My lips are killing me.
All right. Yes, this is Milo. We have 3 cats. Milo's the orange one. Achilles is the black one, and the sort of striped brownish one is Tito. Or as I like to call them, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I don't actually call them that. Hey, buddy.
Just kidding. I don't have chapstick, so I won't be using oil.
All right, so did you finish this section?
I may have. No, because it looks like I haven't finished 6.
Okay.
But I would really like to start from the beginning, because I think I have questions kind of from all the way through it.
Alright, cool. Big boy, we're gonna have to get you down. You're looking
Like
right.
what?
Like, I know you're talking. Alright, so.
You can stay here.
Okay, cool. So let's review for loops. That's what this one's basically doing here. For loops.
Now you don't even know my question.
Well, we're going piece by piece. I want to showcase what's going on here. Well, what is your question about this section?
My thing is it has it lined up for, as you can see there, for the for loop, variable I equals vacation spots dot length -1, which I thought put it at 0, which apparently that is not the case, because putting it at 0 is 0. I thought that maybe that was a different way of putting it at 0, but apparently that runs the code backwards.
Yes. So
what is the difference between running a code forwards and running a code backwards with a -1 and a 0? Because I thought that a -1 puts it at a 0. And how does it run backwards if it's starting at -1?
Okay. So let's break it down. All right. So the confusion here results in we've only been going forward essentially with our for loops, and we're just showing how we can better utilize for loops.
Yeah, so in this first one, they don't actually have you go backwards. They have you go forwards. And then in the next one, they have you reset it up so that you go backwards again.
Okay, so watch out, I'm gonna pull this up a little bit. Show us step to the side. So let's talk about for loops for a second. A traditional for loop. In a traditional for loop, you usually have your iterator, and you're usually setting this I to 0, because you're starting from the beginning and going to the end. And then you iterate for the statement. Now, if it's an array, usually you want to check the whole array, so you'll do array.length. So you'll say something like, I is less than array.length. So what does this statement right here mean?
I is less than the length of the array.
And while that is
less than the length of the array,
keep running.
Good.
Now, this last part, I++, is adding 1 to I. Now, we could also do I plus 2, I plus 3. We could also do I minus minus if we wanted. Now, what would happen if instead of adding 1 in this case, we did I minus minus, where we were minusing 1 from I? We start at 0. 1 iteration, I is -1. Is -1 less than, let's say, 4?
Mm-hmm.
-2, we create an infinite loop. So that wouldn't make sense for here. But this affects the variable I, which we will use in our statement to be able to say how many times we run this for loop. Now, what may be confusing for you here is that, say we wanted to go the reverse way. still create a variable because remember, there are 3 parts. They just have different values now.
Yeah.
You still have the iterator, the statement, and the incrementer. And what happens is, in this case, vacation spots, which for the sake, I'm going to write it off to the side over here so people know what we're talking about, is an array with the values of 1, 2, and 3. Alright? So that's what we're going to, we'll just call this A for array. So, and what we're doing is we're actually going to start I here at the end of the array. So we say A dot, that's the array, length minus 1. Now why do we minus 1? Because our indexes are always 1 smaller. So if we didn't do, what's the length of that array?
3.
What's the last index of that array?
2.
So we have to minus 1, right?
Right.
Cool. Now next thing is, we say we wanted to say, well, I is greater than, or excuse me, while I is greater than,
or equal.
While I is greater than or equal to 0. What do we want to do?
Negative.
I minus minus. So, first iteration, what's the value of I?
Length minus 1.
Which is what?
2.
Cool. So if we wanted to print out, let's just say we wanted to print our array in reverse order. What we'd use what?
Console.log.
Console.log. And we say A, I. So what's the first value it's printing out?
3.
Good. Now we say I minus minus. What's the value of I now?
1.
Okay, and what are we printing out?
2.
And then we do I minus minus.
So that's 1. Or 0.
Okay. And now what are we printing out?
1.
So all we did was instead of going up, we then came down. Now let me give you an example to make a little bit more sense as to how to say instead of 1, 2, and 3, I was mentioned on one of the Medium apps as one of the go-to YouTube channels. Dope. That's actually happened twice, so I'm going to brag. No, I wonder if it's one of the ones that I know about. So here, let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, knowing what we know about how this is set up, we initialize, we have a statement, and we have an incrementer. How do we, and I say to you, April, I only want us to print out the odd numbers using just the for loop and console.log. So if I say console.log, and remember this is AI, and I want it to be only the odd numbers, how would we set up our for loop to do that? Do you have any idea? Now, what's our statement?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Would it be something to do with like setting it equal to like odds?
Sort of incrementing odd numbers. So index 0. What is index 0?
1.
What's index 2?
1.
Or index 1 rather.
0.
No. Index 1. Index 1
is 2.
2. Is that even number?
Yes.
So it goes odd, even, odd, even,
even,
odd, even. Now we could do this with a for loop, with the if statement, but we don't want to. We want to do it in here. Hello?
Coding got here.
Hello? Who's this? Fucking GoDaddy buying domains that get hit up by all these Indian web developers. It's like the site's called Coder's Course. I'm a fucking coder. I can build my own shit. Anyhow, So let me give you an example of how we might do this. So we have this is great less than the length, right? So we want to iterate through the whole array. And we can do it like this. Now,
So I would be minus, no. Well, it could be. Wait, no. It would be plus 2. So it would run every other one.
exactly. So we could do I is equal to I plus 2. Or plus equal 2. And what would happen is, what's the first iteration of I?
0.
0, so it goes 1. What's the second iteration of I? What's I?
It would be
This is 0. So what is
2.
So 2. So here's 2. Is I ever 1?
No.
So we skip it. And we say, what's the third iteration of I?
4.
Then we say, what's the
6.
6th iteration of I? 7
8.
and 8. And so here, you would then go ahead and print out all the odd numbers of the array. Okay, so let's move on let's see what other things you covered in the. Now, okay. Here's a question for you. If I increase this by 1 instead of 2, so as we've been doing with an if statement, how do we print out just the odd numbers?
With an if statement?
Yeah.
And that's what I got to work with?
Yep. So it's running through this whole array, every single index. You're going to use an if statement.
So if it runs through the whole index,
Somehow it's going to check 1, it's going to check 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you only want to print a value that is odd using if statements. So what's the point of an if statement?
to evaluate a statement, but that's not what I'm struggling with. What I'm struggling with is how do I write, do I say if variable I is, or do I say
So how do we
is
get,
a dot length, like I don't know which one to call.
how do we
Which
check,
one am I checking?
how do in a for loop do we check an index for each iteration using arrays? So remember how we added each index? How we targeted that?
Like this.
Okay. So how would you use that? First thing first, you have to get the value.
Right, that's why I'm trying to decide which one of these is printing out my value.
First, you have to see if it's the console log will print it out. Right now, you have to find out, is it even or is it odd?
So does my if statement call the console log?
It checks the value. But in the block, it would call it if it's true, right? So we're checking if it's odd. If it's odd, we want it to print. If it's even, we don't care.
So, no, I'm not getting what I'm looking for. Something's not making sense to me. So, this for loop is printing out all those numbers.
It's going to iterate through all the numbers. It's not going to print it out.
So what is it printing out?
Nothing until you've written it.
Then what is the if statement for if it's not printing out anything?
Because you only want it to print out. You need to use an if statement to only print out the odd numbers.
So it's checking everything, but it's not printing anything out.
Correct.
Because my if statement is going to print it.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's only going to print it.
So what do I call from my for loop? Because it's not being printed, so I don't call that. That's giving me my numbers. That's checking it. But
So
I can see the value.
Let me remind you what's going on. So in this statement, we need to somehow check if a value is odd.
I know.
If that's true, then within here, we want to console dot log log a I. So the way that this isn't going to print out the all of the values, because it's running through the whole thing, is this if statement. This if statement's protecting this.
Yeah.
Only the odds get through. So what do we write in here so that only the odds get through?
Yeah, I get that. What I'm asking is, what here is running through there that I can call here to say, look, if it's odd, print this. If it's false, then whatever.
Well, you have to use your math operators. You have to use plus, minus, not equals, times, divide, modulo.
What the hell are you saying? Okay.
So what I'm saying is, using these operators, this might be a little beyond you, so don't be afraid if you can't put it all together. Let me remind you what all this does. Okay? So this adds a number, right?
Yeah.
This subtracts a number.
Yeah.
This says not, the opposite. This times, divides, and what does modulo do?
Gives you a remainder.
Okay. So with that, we are going to check every value. How do we check a value in our array? Using the brackets, right? And I is 0, 1, 2, 3. So each iteration I increases. So we know how to print out every value, right? If this if wasn't here, this would print out.
It's not printing out any values though, it's just checking them.
Right. In the if statement, it's checking it. So how do we do that? Maybe a hint. Modulo.
Yeah, I got that when you wrote it down and I thought, okay, that's the one I'm gonna use.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. I know what everything means and does, I just don't know how to put it together to get what it is that I need to print out.
Okay, so how do we know if an item is an even number?
It gives a remainder of 2.
No, it gives a remainder of 0. And how do we do that? What do we divide it by?
The length of the array.
If I gave you the number 6 and I said, can you tell me if this is an even number? Do you know how mathematicians would define that?
No.
So it's when you so the way that 6 is an even number isn't because 5 is an odd and 7 is odd. It's because when you divide it by the number 2, any even number when divided by 2 is 0.
Yeah.
So
that's why I said 2.
Okay, so
I thought there was a trick question in there.
No. Okay, so knowing that every even number
can be divided by 2
and has a remainder of 0.
So you would say 2. So you would say take this number and divide it by 2, and if I get a remainder of 0,
it's even.
False.
That would be false. So what would the remainder be to make it a true statement? Now you can use a couple other things in here. Not equals, minus, plus, times, divide, to make that a true statement.
Yeah, but what do I write from here that I say?
You don't need to write anything other than this statement.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. Let me show you.
So if, I don't know how to call that. Like, how would you?
So how do we get the value out of our index? Right? What value are we checking? We're checking the array index. So if we want to check the array index, we just say I. First iteration, what is this? What is the value?
1.
Good. Now, how do we find out if one is even or odd?
You divide it by 2. Or remainder of 2?
Yes, we find the remainder.
So, remainder. I don't know how the number fits in there.
Okay. So this is modulo 2.
Okay.
And so what we're checking is what? Is that
Equal to 0.
that would be an even number. We want the odds. So what's the opposite of equals?
Not equal.
Good. So now, every number that is not equal to 0 when divided by 2 is an odd number. That's what our logic here is saying. And now, it's only going to print the odd numbers. And we can check it real quick. So 1 divided by 2 equals 0?
No.
Nope. Cool. So it prints out 1. 2 divided by 2 equals 0?
Yep.
Doesn't print it out, just runs through the rest of the code. 3 divided by 2 equals 0?
No.
So it prints out 3. 4 divided by 2.
I get it.
Good. All right. Let's continue on with the loops. Do you want a harder problem based off of what we just did?
No. That's a really good level for me.
Okay. All right, so I think you're good on the for loops. For loop backwards, we already talked about that.
So, negative 1. Oh, okay. So,
Now, do you understand why you had to do the -1 there?
no, see, that's where I'm confused because the -1 I thought put it at 0.
No, it minuses 1 from the length. So what if we -1 from A?
Yeah, I forgot that. I didn't realize. I was thinking that it was taking away from the I equals because they said I equals a dot length, and I was thinking, oh, okay, so it takes, so it's.
Because remember, the length is equal to. Do you know why this isn't A dot length minus 1? Why it's less than, if we did less than or equal to, we'd have to -1?
No.
Because this doesn't run. It runs all the way up to. But A dot length, remember, there's no. In this case, the length is what? 9? There is only index 8. So it hits 8 and it doesn't run again. Now, if we did less than or equal to, it would hit 8 and it would run one more time for 9. Because 8 is equal to 8. So it runs one time. So we'd have to -1 here.
And that would just be sloppy code otherwise.
No, sloppy code would break.
It would break.
It would break. Because
Why?
there's no index 9. It would return undefined. It'd throw off all your logic. Alright, so let's take more looks at these loops. For loops inside of for loops.
Yeah, that was fun.
Fun as in you understood it.
It took me a second to understand the if statement that was attached to it, but
I'm not necessarily going to have you start thinking out for loops and for loops quite yet. Just know that if you have a for loop nested in here, say we had a for loop nested inside of our for loop, every time this one runs,
you would take what it printed. No.
forget about what it's doing. Let's just think about the logic for a second and how nested for loops work. So say we have a variable I here. On the first run, if there's a second for loop in it, what happens is it runs through all 20 values of that second for loop. And then when that's done, it goes to the second iteration here. Then it runs through it again.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay, good. All right, while loops. So let's review while loops. While loops are kind of similar to for loops. You don't use them all that often. Or at least I haven't. they are a thing. One of the foundations of web development and basic syntax. Now, did you get to while loops? No, it doesn't look like it. Cool, so I'm going to show you another way of doing a loop. Now, again, you probably wouldn't use this too often, but it is a thing. Alright, so one way of doing a while loop is you have this while, and then you have a statement in here that says, we'll say one is, or we'll say, create a var I outside of it. But basically, equals 0, okay? So we'll say while I is less than 5. And why that's the case, run everything that's in here. Run, 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 run. Now, if we don't change the value of I to be true by putting maybe an I++ at the end, we just create an infinite loop. This will never break. Now,
why would you need a loop that never breaks?
You don't. That's it. It's. Well, I'm saying that's what you need to avoid. If you have a loop that doesn't break ever, it goes on to infinity. It never runs anything else, so it doesn't do anything. It just crashes your program. So, another thing is let's say this is a variable. Instead of I being 0, I is equal to true. And so we just are checking I. Is I true? Yeah. And maybe we have an if statement that says, look, if whatever we're checking finally hits, go ahead and set I equal to false. And then we break out of our loop. Now, if we write our code in which this never evaluates to true, also an infinite loop. But we can do infinite loops like I showed just in our for loop, right? So this is another way of creating a loop that continues until you break out of it.
So this one you have to manually break out of?
Well, you're manually breaking out of the other one as well. Remember, because we set it up. We have our incrementer, we have our we have our statement, and then we have our iterator, statement, incrementer. So that the point of the incrementer and the statement is to break out. So we set that up at the top. Same thing here. We just have a little bit more flexibility on how we set this up.
What is that?
Maybe we're not iterating through an array, or there's a very unique case where a while loop works a little bit better logistically. It just depends. You don't really use while loops all that much, but they are something. I can't even remember the last time I used a while loop. But yeah, so while loops. Not the most complicated thing in the world, but prone for people who are new to software to get infinite loops. Because they are a little bit harder to understand. So, let's talk about, what do we want to talk about? Because that's about what you covered today.
Yeah.
Man, I'm tired.
Same. So tired.
It's been a long week. Okay, so let me take this down. We'll sit down for a second. And do you use links, lists, or arrays in your JavaScript practices during work? I do a lot of front-end development, and I use arrays a lot in objects more than anything else. Iterating through arrays of objects and objects of arrays and all that bullshit.
Yeah, what do you mean by have we gone over using objects?
We did. We did do an introduction to it. I would say not to worry about it till you can start
Writing.
till you can start solving basic algorithms. Do you want to go on free code camp? We'll attempt one of the easier ones.
Easier ones, what?
Algorithms.
Okay.
Alright. Alright, so let's hop on to beta.freecodecamp.com.
Be right back.
You gonna go drop a deuce? No. Oh my god. The stinks are coming, boys. Alright, what's a good algorithm to get started with? We can start reverse a string, maybe. Actually, we'll do the Celsius to Fahrenheit. All right, let's see. Let's see if April is ready for the next level here, boys. This one humbled you, the Fahrenheit. Yeah, we're 1/4 of the way there, man. It's been a journey. It has been a journey. To be honest, I wish it was a 30-day challenge. I wish it was the 300-day challenge, is what I was saying.
A 300-day challenge?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
You just love me so much?
That's right. Alright, so let's look at this problem real quick. I'm gonna explain.
We can make it 300.
No. Let's. I don't want to put that pressure on you. Right?
That's no pressure, baby. Why are you crying? You're just so excited.
Alright, okay, so,
It's just like a 3.
alright, my love, let me explain to you what this algorithm is supposed to do. This algorithm is supposed to take in a Celsius, a number in Celsius.
And then it turns it into Fahrenheit. So you have to divide it by like 9 or something.
So the algorithm to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit is the temperature in Celsius times 9.5 plus 32. So knowing that, how would we return Fahrenheit? I'll switch you spots.
No.
Alright, you tell me what to write then. So we have to take Celsius and we need to somehow return Fahrenheit with this formula.
Okay, well, function convert of Celsius. Okay, so they're not. Oh, so we're not hard coding this.
Well, to a degree, we're taking in a parameter that we have to use.
Right.
There's no for loops, there's no if statements.
The algorithm to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit is the temperatures. Okay, so return Fahrenheit. Variable Fahrenheit return. That's weird. I would not start it like that. You were given a variable Celsius representing a temperature in Celsius. Use the variable Fahrenheit already defined and apply the algorithm to assign the corresponding Fahrenheit. So maybe it'll console log print.
Well, we don't need to print anything. All we want to do is return it with the return statement.
Can I use console log as a form of applying a 9.5 plus 32 to give me what I want?
To see it print out, to check your values, yes.
So I have to do another return with it giving the...
Well, the console log isn't a return. All it is printing.
No, I get that. I'm not talking about console log anymore. I'm talking about return.
Okay.
So can I use return? I was looking at that screen because that's far away.
Okay.
I wasn't even looking at the chat. So can I do like return Fahrenheit times Celsius times no. So can I do return Celsius times 9.5 plus 32
9 divided by 5. 9.5.
And then do like a string attachment where Fahrenheit equals whatever printout that is.
We don't need to print anything out. We're just trying to return a number.
I want to print it out. I like the print.
So let's remember we can assign values to Fahrenheit. So instead of being this equal to 0, maybe we would throw in that equation into Fahrenheit. And then down below, we would console.log it. If you really want to print it out, we could console.log Fahrenheit. So where might we put our equation? What would our equation be?
So Fahrenheit equals Celsius.
Okay.
Then you would put in 9 divided by 5. No, Celsius. Is it Celsius times 9 divided by 5 plus 32?
So your final answer.
I feel like it shouldn't be this easy. Yes, that's my final answer.
Good job, baby. You passed your first algorithm.
And I printed that bitch out.
Yeah, you went above and beyond. All right. Because it's Friday and you solved the algorithm, you're making progress. I'll give you the option of either you can talk with chat for the next 15 minutes instead of the normal 10 that we do, or we can do another one.
Let's do another one.
You want to do another one? All right. So here we are trying to
Give me what? How do you do Jeopardy? So what is it? No. Is it Jeopardy or is it Family Game?
Family Feud?
Family
No.
Feud,
Wheel
you
of
know,
Fortune. You're thinking, give me a G. All right. So let me explain what this is.
Thank you, Juan. I feel like you saying good girl like a dog.
All right. So let me explain what we're supposed to do here.
Okay.
This one's going to test you with documentation. So what you need to do is take that string hello and reverse it.
Oh, so like the negative, like reverse
That would be
it.
one way of doing it.
Okay.
That could work. So what are we doing here? So we have this string, hello, and we want it to be LO. OLO.
Oh, okay. So we would set up our function differently.
Our function, our for loop, our what? So how are we changing this function to return OLLEH?
I would totally just set it up like we set up the array just now.
Okay.
But is there like another way of doing it?
There's a lot of these. There's like 50 ways to do them.
Oh.
So, but
how do you start to learn the other ways?
going through the documentation, just becoming a better developer after years of practice, things like that. But you were on the right path for the for loop. So if that's my suggestion to you is to work through the way that feels most natural at first.
Well, obviously it's going to be what I'm introduced to first.
Okay, so you said the negative for loop. So how are we setting that up?
So, what is this, a function? Yeah, so I just do for loop.
All right, so for, what's our iterator?
Our iterator is I equals reverse string dot length. Wait, is that its?
That's the name of the function. Takes in the parameter str, which in this case is hello.
Okay, so str dot length -1. Then I is it greater than equal to? Greater than equal to. Shit, I forgot.
Well, what are we trying to do? We're starting at what? The high end of the string, right? That's what your I says. So that I is an O, and we're saying for the length, and the length's -1. So where are we trying to go? Are we trying to go to the H?
Yeah.
And at that point, we want to stop.
Right.
So what is it?
I'm not getting what you're saying.
So
Let's see. So var I equals string dot length -1. So that puts us at
4.
0, 1, 2, 4.
And we wanted to. You
So
said
as
you
long
want.
as I is greater or equal to string dot length.
This is incorrect.
Okay. Equal to.
Because is I ever greater than or equal to string dot length? If one is this is 5, and we're starting it off at 4, is 4 ever greater than 5?
No.
So obviously there's something wrong with your logic here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to.
Now we're trying to go from the end of the string, which has a higher index, to the beginning of the string, which has the smallest index.
So 0.
0. Now what are we doing?
I minus.
All right. Now, how do we grab each letter, add it to add
So
it
it'd
to
be str bracket I. No.
In this case, James, you can iterate through a string because each character has a let's do that before we do anything else. Has a bracket. So console.log str I. Oops. So let me show you real quick. ASCII, get out of here, man. We're not doing ASCII. I wouldn't do ASCII. So if we run our string, it's going to return hello. but see how it's returning OLL? That's what the 2 stands for. See, OLLEH. So you're on the right path. Now the question is, how do we store that data and return it as a single string?
Oh, we need a variable.
Okay, where are we creating that variable?
At the top.
Above the function?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's where you put it last time. You put our total at the top.
So, okay, so the reason you don't put it there is because we need to reset total every time. So here we're setting it to an empty string, and the reason for that is because remember we plan on reusing our code, so we have to set it here to get reset the next time that the function's called.
Okay.
If we set it outside here, what would actually happen is total would just keep on growing.
Okay.
So based off what we know with total, what do we do next?
We put our string into it. We put our values into it.
Okay, so you're saying I do something with total here. What do we do?
I forget. Total equals str brackets I think that's it.
Okay, and then we want to return total.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we run it, what do we actually get here? So it's actually getting returned is, so it doesn't show you a good error message here, but this is incorrect. So we're not getting hello. What's actually getting returned, what's happening every time we set this locally in the scope? So total is equal to, on str0, what is, or str4, what is?
Oh, it has to be str. How would you write that? Like negative, like minus.
No. We're resetting the total value every time.
Okay.
Instead of, if this was a number and I was saying total is equal to 5, and then I want to say total is equal to 6, but I was supposed to add total is equal to 5 plus 6. What is incorrect with how you're setting up your variable?
I need to put an add in there.
Okay, now what is the add?
Total equal plus stri.
Where's the plus going?
It's going total equals between the str and the I. I don't think so.
Right there?
That doesn't feel right.
No, it's not. This will actually break your code.
Right here.
No.
It's inside then.
Nope, that's not it either.
Okay. Well, then it's that plus stri again.
No.
Okay, well then I'm like totally lost.
We're resetting the value of total every time. So let's walk through this real
Yeah, but
quick.
we don't want to reset the value of total.
Yeah. So how do we not reset the value of total?
Total's gotta keep it. How do we tell total to keep it?
How do we keep total while still adding the new value to it?
What is that? What is that? I don't remember.
Well, how do we take 5 and add 6 to it to make 11?
I don't know how to write that.
Okay. Well, I'll show you 3 different ways. Plus equals. What does plus equals mean?
Oh, son.
It means total is equal to total plus that. We could do total
That's what I was thinking.
is equal to that. But
I was thinking if I said total equal to total, but I was thinking it of the opposite way, so.
But what you should be doing is using the string function concat. Concat is the proper way of joining strings together.
Okay.
So JavaScript's a little funky in the fact that that it will allow you to
Jerry-rig a code.
Is concat really not in here? Oh, string methods. Alright. So I'm going to show you this real quick. And what we may do now is, as you can continue going through your code, we'll start going back through W3 schools in the JavaScript section so that you can know that these things exist. So, see how it says hello world here? It takes text 1, text 2, says text 3 is equal to text1 dot concat. Forget that this is there because we don't want to concat that. If we run this, it'll be hello world next to each other. But all you have to do is concat that to your value. So in our case here, I'll put this up over here as documentation. So on the right hand side we have our example. On our left hand side, how do we set up total?
So total equals. Does total have to be a var, a variable?
Yes, it's a string variable, but we set that up here with our quotations, right?
Yeah.
So concat is a string method, meaning it only works with strings in this case.
Interesting.
So we want to add the 2 strings together. You alright?
I hit my foot. So total equals.
Now we want to keep the same values.
So total equals total dot concat
What are we concating?
the stri string.
Good job. Arrays also have concat. If you have 2 arrays and you want to add them together, you can do it with concat.
So arrays and strings.
Yes.
Nothing else?
I don't think so, no.
Bummer.
Alright, so that was good. Progress is being made. Remember how hard these algorithms...
James go, oh, no, I've reached my limit.
Remember?
I'm gonna get super frustrated with the next one. I could feel it.
Remember how hard these algorithms were when we were getting started?
Yeah, super hard.
It's a good sign of progress. Also, a good reason to get yourself some tutoring sessions for the low price. No. Should you use concat for strings? You can. There's nothing wrong with it. So, progress is being made. We are now moving on to more advanced stuff. I didn't have to help you too much with these algorithms. I would be fairly confident that if I left you here tomorrow, you could solve them again. And I think what we will do is have you do exactly that. When we get started tomorrow, we will continue through And we will start reviewing JavaScript methods and things like that. And that will be really helpful as you continue on trying to understand what tools are available for you, as well as trying to think like a programmer, which is the hardest part. So today was good.
Okay.
Happy Friday, everybody. That's all I had to say. Is there anything you want to say before I send us out? Do my spiel?
Code long and prosper.
Yes. And while you code long and prosper...
Yes.
No syntax errors today. That was good.
Fuck you.
Thank you guys as always. We are 1/4 of the way there. I hope you take this as inspiration that in 25 days you can go from being completely, and mind you, we've only spent the last, I would say probably the last maybe 14 days of the 25 studying JavaScript, and here we are 2 weeks later.
Hi, James.
Solving 2 algorithms together in relative quick succession, going over the basics, kind of reiterating things until they're pounded into your head, and we're going to continue doing that. So I hope you guys see that you can make quite a bit of progress, and we're only 1/4 of the way there. Solve 2 basic algorithms. I'm pretty impressed by that, and we'll continue moving forward. And right when these start feeling easy, there'll be a nice hard section moving forward, and that's kind of programming in a nutshell. Is you get good at the stuff that you practice, and then when you get good at that, you move on to the hard stuff again. Thank you for watching. As always, don't forget to join our Facebook group. If you want to support me, you can at patreon.com/codingtutorials360. In the meantime, make sure that you join our Facebook group. I have some big giveaways coming out soon for Facebook members. Big. Lots of announcements in the next 2 weeks. So I highly encourage you guys to be on there, and it'll be good stuff. So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video, and I guess that's tomorrow. As April says, code long and prosper.
Hey, you said it.